Lots of activities, economic as well as trade activities, took place in the Harappan cities. There was the obtaining of raw materials, then collecting of resources from mining areas, then manufacturing goods and marketing. All these required effective management, and a systematic chain developed. Now, the copper, which was used because it was a Chalcolithic period, copper was obtained from Rajasthan and Baluchistan. Then lapis lazuli came from Pamirs, timber from Gujarat, semi-precious stones from Western India. And as well, along with the trade activities, the pottery also improved a lot. Designs on pottery include those of animals, birds, and even abstract forms. And there was the designs were in black on red surfaces. Then craftsmanship also developed to a great extent. There were skilled craftsmen here who uh, used copper, gold, ivory, and other resources for making their wares. And bead making was an extensive industry. There were other bronze tools, but stone tools were still being used for functional purposes. And these cities, the Harappan cities, became centers of these crafted items. And these items were exported by land and sea to various other regions. And there was also the evidence, there is a hint that perhaps workshops also existed in Harappan cities. And this is found uh, based on the evidence of unfinished objects which were found in certain regions, so which perhaps hinted at the presence of workshops. Then trade was effective, and which also is proved by the fact there was a systematic arrangement of a trade as well as a sophisticated weights and measures. And Lothal was an important port for the export of certain items. So it is the trade which kept the cities economically viable. And then when we come to civic planning, we find that from the evidence that a very sophisticated civic planning existed in the cities. Usually, the city was divided into smaller citadels for public use. These are public. The public places were in the west. Then the residential areas were to the east. And also, there's evidence that certain there were concentrations of people in the cities in certain areas based on similar professions. So these citadels were what are citadels? Citadels are kind of fortresses on high ground above the city. So there were huge man-made brick platforms which served as the foundations to the buildings of the citadels, and these were high above the ground so as to ensure protection from floods because of the closeness to the rivers and the threat of flood during the monsoon period. Then the closeness to the rivers also helped in a different manner, and that is through river transportation of goods. Then the cities were planned cities, and they usually the planning was done in a grid pattern. like a grid. And there was a very scientific drainage system which existed in the cities of the Indus Valley civilization. There were house drains and there were street drains, and the house drains were linked with the street drains. And then the patterns of the houses were such that there was a there was usually a courtyard in the middle, and then rooms opening into it from different directions. And houses had individual wells as well as bathing places. The drains were made from kiln fired brick, whereas the houses were made of mud brick. So we'll stop here for today.